Joanne on finance for next year.
I know.
So I'm gonna nominate you, and you're second, and we're gonna vote, you're gonna be chair.
Okay.
Okay.
You have a quorum with two.
And we got a
Yeah,
quorum.
good, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, that's why I said we could get started.
Yeah, okay. Sarah, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, Mark, tell me when you're gonna go. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, January 26th. We are here at Twinsburg Government Center. I would like to call the regular Finance Committee meeting to order. It is 5:31 p.m. We have Mr. Scafidi with us this evening, Mr. Bellin, Mr. Fury, Mrs. Stauffer, Mrs. Walker. Several members appearing via Zoom. We have Ms. Betenson, Jim Roberts, Bryan Mineard, and Sarah Bucci-Gross, our finance director. And that's where we are. Do we have any audience participation? I don't believe so. Mark, has anyone signed up to speak? No. All right, having no audience participation, I'd like to move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the approval of the November 4th, 2020 Finance Committee meeting minutes. Does anyone have a chance to review those?
Make a motion to approve the November 24th, 2020 Finance Committee meeting minutes as submitted.
Are we still the old committee or the new committee? Because he can't do that now.
Well, we haven't, don't we do that?
Yeah, but that would be the committee members. This is finance committee.
Okay. Well, shouldn't there have been an item on the agenda then where we would nominate a new chair?
Yeah, it's not on there, so you
All
get,
right,
you need to
so-
do that.
Make a motion to amend the agenda.
Mr. Fury from the old finance committee would like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
That's what I'd like to do.
All right,
I'd like
we have-
I'd like to add, the motion I would like to make is to add the election of officers, vice president and president.
Or chairman, vice chairman, chairman, vice chairman.
Thank you.
Perfect. Is there a second on Mr. Fury's motion, Mr. Bellin?
I'll second.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so moving on to agenda item 2.5, amended. I'd like to make this, take this opportunity to welcome the members of the Finance Committee as appointed by the President of Council for the 2021 year. We have in attendance Mr. Scafidi. Ms. McFerrin is also going to be joining us on Finance. She is not here at this time, and I was appointed to Finance again as well. As the outgoing chair, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Scafidi as the chair of Finance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Scafidi seconds. Seeing as it's just the two of us are here, congratulations, Mr. Scafidi. You are the chair of Finance for the 2021 year.
Thank you, former chairman.
I'll relinquish the meeting to you this evening.
I appreciate that,
sir.
thank you. I guess the second order of business, do we typically put in a vice chairman? Okay. I'll nominate Scott Barr for vice chairman. Is there a second? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
That business is done. All right, we're on to item number 4. Sarah, the 2020 financial review.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen here, so hang on just a sec.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at that too.
Okay, so we recently closed out the 2020 books. I just wanted to go over the results from last year. Our general fund, we were able to add to our reserve balance that $3.6 million number that you see on the left-hand side there. And on the next slide, we'll get into how we were able to accomplish that on the revenue side of things. We did make several reductions to the budget last year. If you remember, as the COVID crisis hit, we ended up reducing through capital, personnel, and operating expenses. We reduced the original budget by about $3.9 million. Then on the right-hand side of your screen there, our total fund balance, we were also able to add to our reserves in total, and that's that $4.4 million number. The other big piece of the puzzle on the increase in reserves is that $900,000 we were able to add over in sewer revenue and sewer improvement. Those dollars are going to be needed for our multi-year financial planning. And we're gonna be going over that at the March Finance Committee meeting when Mr. Campbell comes and presents about the wastewater treatment plant, capital investments that we're gonna be doing over there. So any questions on those ending balances?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So then on your left-hand side there, you'll see our income tax collections where we ended up. We ended up just under $22.6 million. We did receive a very large net profit tax estimate at the end of last year of over $800,000. And you'll remember whenever we get those large estimates like that, we hang on to them, but we don't necessarily consider them cash in the bank until those folks file their tax return. Just because when they are that large of size, you'd hate to have to give that money back when you were planning on having it. And that did happen to us last year. We did have a large net profit tax estimate that ended up going back to the taxpayer of about $500,000 that we ended up having to give back. So that's what happened there. We had expected to be down about $2 million in our income tax collections from those RETA estimates back at the beginning of the pandemic. And we ended up being down about half that, and mostly due to that large net profit tax estimate that we got at the end of the year. So we ended up down 3.98%, where we had been hovering around 8.5% down in the fourth quarter. Then over on the other side of the screen, you'll see on the revenue side of things, and there's a couple expense offsets in there too included, how we were able to build reserves. So we had cut our budget in preparation for what we were going to be hit with the pandemic. And then as the year went on, we did receive relief funding from several different sources. The local coronavirus fund, we ended up getting over $1 million by the end of the year. The Summit County payroll relief program that we used to offset police, fire, and dispatch payroll costs. We got over $500,000 from that program. We also used a chunk of that local coronavirus money to offset police, fire, and dispatch costs. And those are just direct expense relief funding that we received that ended up being cash in the bank. So those were great things that we were able to use that money for. Then workers' comp came through towards the end of the year, and we ended up getting 2 additional dividends. We usually get 1 dividend from workers' comp. We ended up getting 3 last year. And that was the state of Ohio released those funds from their workers' comp pool that they have, and we ended up getting an additional $1.36 million from workers' comp. We also got a small EMS relief grant that was very specific for fire costs related to the pandemic, and they did use that money for those supplies. And then the next one down is more of an expense relief. That was the OPWC loan. Our July payment was deferred, so that saved us cash out the door of $124,000. We also received a discount on our MedMutual, on our healthcare premium for our employees, of $57,000 towards the end of the year. That was I believe it was our December premium payment that we pay in November, is where we saved that money. One thing I do want to discuss real quick before we move on to any questions from this slide, that $57,000 number, we had talked about possibly using that money to help out our employees by way of a fitness incentive. We have a fitness incentive program here at the city where you can earn up to $325 towards your healthcare costs, whether it's your HSA account or offsetting your PPO contribution. And we had thought that it might be a nice thing to do to help our employees out if they were not able to meet the requirements of the fitness incentive program due to some of the restrictions from the pandemic, to go ahead and give everyone that $325 whether they earned their points or not. And so that's something that we've been discussing internally. And I just wanted to make sure that there would be no objections from council, should we move forward with something like that. And we would still save money at the end of the day. It would cost us less to support the employees with that $325 each than it would in what we were able to save on the premium cost.
Hey, Sarah, Bill has a question.
Yes,
What's the premium cost per employee?
the premium cost per employee, it depends on which program they're enrolled in, and I can get you those numbers. There's a difference in the rate that we pay depending on if they're HSA or PPO. I don't have it off the top of my head. But I can get you those before the end of the meeting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I have them right behind me. Okay, any other questions on how we were able to build reserves in the general fund after this slide?
Anybody? No, Sarah.
Okay. So just a couple notes about 2020. Our capital and infrastructure, we were able to move that clubhouse note that we've been rolling the past few years into a bond. We will be paying it out of the general bond retirement fund. That is the same place where we paid off the loan, the bond on actual golf course purchase. So there's consistency there, which will be nice. We are also holding multi-year planning sessions, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We're going to plan on some catch-up capital and infrastructure spending since we did hold off on a few things last year. On the personnel side of things, at the beginning of 2020, we were at 182 full-time folks. Right now, we are at 164. So that is a full-time staffing reduction of 18 or 10%. I'm not sure that that number is where we will land going forward as things open back up. You'll see in a few slides that we have some things to discuss as the year goes on in different departments. Those reductions for now, though, are allowing for continued savings in salaries and wages, pension, healthcare in the current budget. Any questions there at the moment?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So you guys have seen this this pie chart and the attached numbers a few times. It's something that I put out each year, and I do it two different ways. On this one, you're seeing it by the account type spend so that you can see on our personnel, 66 cents out of every general fund dollar goes to pay for our people, the people providing the services to the residents of the city. Another 19 cents on the dollar goes towards our operating costs. So that's where the bulk of our money is spent, is those two items. Now, that personnel line item actually would normally be a little bit higher, but we did have those offsets for police, fire, and dispatch into the local coronavirus and the Summit County COVID relief funds. So there's probably another $1 million in expense for safety services that you're not seeing there because we were able to cover them under those other two funds. And that's just for 2020. I don't know that that will happen again, depending on what relief programs come out in 2021 for us, if any. So we have the same sort of breakdown just by department type as opposed to line item type. Where you can see the bulk of our money is spent on safety and service. I think that's 57% there, 58% is spent on safety and service. Again, that's a bit of a deceiving number on the safety side because there's another $1 million in expense that we were able to offset through those other two funds. And then inside that employee costs number, that 13% number, that is healthcare for our employees. So the bulk of our employees live in those safety and service sectors. So the bulk of that employee cost also goes towards our safety and service employees. Any questions on the updated pie charts?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right, so since today we have the Golf and Fitness Center and Parks and Rec folks on the Zoom, I wanted to go over those funds in a little bit more detail, and we'll do the same thing at the next two Finance Committee meetings as we lay out the 2021 permanent budget. On the golf side, there was a subsidy of $540,000, but that fund did end with a balance of $118,000. That's just because there were some months that we had to put money in, and the course ended up doing really well in the second half of the year. So that fund balance will help them stay afloat in January since the course is back closed. One thing that I did want to show in the golf fund, because I know the discussion most of the time is centered around the clubhouse and the costs of the clubhouse, but I wanted to take a moment and point out what happened on the actual golf course. The golf course brought in that $1.16 million number. If you set aside the clubhouse for just a moment and you look at the costs of what it took to run the pro shop and the maintenance of that course, the subsidy was just under $32,000 for actual course play. And when you consider that the course was shut down to 3 to 4 weeks due to COVID, I just think that's pretty impressive what Bryan and Jim were able to do out there during the pandemic. It gave people a place to go when there was not a whole lot open for people to do. And I just wanted to take a moment and kind of give some kudos to those guys for what they were able to accomplish last year. And on the pro shop side, what they had to do to keep everybody safe was, it was intense. And maybe Bryan can talk a little bit about that when we get to his slide.
Okay.
I just want to point that out for a moment. Does anybody have any questions there?
No, Sarah.
Okay. Then on the fitness side, the fitness center, we did have a subsidy of $110,000 and some change. So on the fitness center, that subsidy is higher than normal. They were completely shut down for 2.5 months last year. They opened back up in June, but it was pretty intense specifications and regulations that they had to follow over there. And they were also issuing refunds and credits to members who were not returning, or even just for that 2.5 months that they were not able to attend the center. Limited classes did resume shortly thereafter. The classes are still limited, and we'll get into a little more discussion with that when we get to Jennifer's slide towards the end of today's presentation. All right, so if there's any other questions related to our little small 2020 recap that we had there?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So on to permanent appropriations. Up first, we have Bryan. So over in the pro shop, running the course, collecting the fees. I'll just get him started off here. We are going to still be having JJB Burntwood run the restaurant and banquet services in 2021. Our income from that operation through rent and utility offset will be just over $100,000. Bryan, do you want to talk a little bit about the possible course fee increase and what the minimum wage rate increase might have an effect on those course fees?
Sure, Sarah. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. Just a few things with the increase in fees. It was always based upon this year and kind of where golf is sitting right now, a better spot than previous years. We're definitely going to increase fees across the board. I haven't set fees or even thought about it yet based upon the new president and his discussion with this minimum wage possibly going up to $15 an hour. So everything's kind of on hold right now. Taking a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails about rates, explaining to people kind of where we're at with that, and everyone seems to be very understanding of it. But definitely this coming season will be some kind of increase. Just kind of waiting to get a better feel or get some more input about this minimum wage rate that could take place this season. I'm not even sure when. So that's pretty much what I have for rates at this point, but we'll kind of see where it goes. Would be the best advice I could give at this point.
Okay.
And as far as Brian's actual budget, the expense side of things, we're not changing anything from the temporary budget under his line items. So that temporary budget document that you received today, his will look exactly the same on the expense side. However, you see that note down there, we might update the revenue side of things, which would change the golf course subsidy. And we're going to base that off of those 2020 closed numbers when we do our estimates for the permanent budget, which we will have in front of you guys at the next finance/council meeting. And also another highlight over on that side is the course was ranked number 2 in the state of Ohio by Golf Advisor for public courses. And I did Google the number 1 course and it looked to be privately owned. So I think that makes us the number 1 municipal owned and operated course. If I can do that, Bryan?
Sure.
Okay, I got the okay from Bryan, so I'm going with it. So congratulations to Bryan and Jim on that. And lastly, the general clubhouse budget on taking care of the building side, we're able to reduce that 22% or $37,000, excuse me. And that's obviously there's a huge reduction from last year because we had that clubhouse debt sitting under that general clubhouse line item. But that wouldn't be a fair comparison. So it's truly the 22%. And that's just getting used to what the building is actually costing us.
Okay.
Any other questions for Bryan? Sorry.
Anybody? Not at this time.
Okay, thanks, Bryan.
Thanks, everybody.
Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to Jim over at Golf Maintenance. So we went from 4 full-timers out there to 3, and that was planned before the pandemic, but we're going to have the same kind of watch over on that minimum wage for seasonal hiring, just because we want to make sure we can capture our costs that best that we can while offering a reasonable price to the residents and to anybody else that wants to come play the course. Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about your operating expenses and your potential 1 to 3% increases there?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Jim.
Right now, our operating expenses will remain the same as 2020, that same dollar amount. But there is potential in the upcoming years with increases of supplies such as fertilizers, chemicals, fuel, some of our larger items that we use throughout the year most likely will be increased. So I just wanted to make mention when I visited with Sarah that those operating expenses down the line, due to increase in supplies and usage, we could potentially see some increases in that area over the next couple of years. But as of right now, for 2021, that number is going to remain the same as it did for 2020.
And the actual expense budget, it's the same as the pro shop. Their line items are all going to stay the same. That's kind of why we started with these folks, because their temporary budgets are not going to change for the permanent budget. The one thing that after I spoke with Jim that he did want to talk about, we have all of the golf capital items currently on hold, just because I wanted to give us a little time as we got started in 2021 to see what our revenues were looking like, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation as well. So Jim, do you want to talk about the item that you might want to try to bring back onto the permanent budget?
Sure, thank you. We originally had 3 items for 2021 capital. And in the talking with Sarah and trying to keep expenses down, we're looking at 1 item. And I'd like to make a request to revisit that item for consideration and have it placed on the 2021 capital budget. And that item is our 1996 reel grinder. This unit has exceeded its useful life and needs replaced. The 25-year-old unit is inadequate with old technology and is no longer in production. It's used throughout the year with very heavy usage during the off-season. Ultimately, this machine brings life to multiple other machines and helps keep our fleet up and running. Concerns with our current grinder that we have now, as I mentioned, it's 25 years old. It's the original unit when we purchased the golf course. No longer in production. They do not make this unit anymore, and it's very challenging for us to get parts. It does not grind our reels as precise as it should, and it takes time because it's a manual unit, meaning the mechanic, as he's grinding the units, has to be at that machine at all times for the grinding. And also, it's not safe for the operator because of the dust with no vacuum system. So those are some of the concerns with this current unit that we would like to look at for replacement. Some advantages of a potential new machine would be, number 1, longevity. This should last at least 20 years. It's not something that would be needed to get replaced in 10 or 15 years. So this would be a long-term investment for the city and the golf course. This unit would offer new technology with computer touchpad for programming, and it's faster because it's not a manual unit. This is a big benefit because it frees up the mechanic to work on other repairs while the machine is running. So basically, if he sets something up, he could walk away, go to another item that needs repaired, and work on that item, since this new machine would be automated and not manual. It's also safer for the operator because it's self-contained with the vacuum system for dust control, and it will be able to grind precisely without the use of manual gauges for setup. There'll be no second guessing. Everything will come out perfect. So those are just some of the pros and cons of our old machine compared to our new one, and a little recap of that machine. So I guess that would be something maybe Finance Committee would possibly report to council. And like I said, this is just a request to possibly get this one capital unit on the 2021, one capital item on the 2021 capital budget.
Jim, what's the cost of that?
That's all I have. Excuse me?
Jim, what are we talking as far as cost?
I have budgeted, Sam, 48.7, but in talking with the vendors right now, I'm trying to get that number down. We're looking at around 46,000 for that unit. And once again, that would be something that would last 20 plus years.
Okay. Where was the capital improvements board on that when went past them?
That
Did
did
go through,
pass.
or I don't remember.
They were all in favor of that item in 2021 and in 2020.
Okay. Okay. We'll take that under consideration then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions for Jim?
No. Seeing none here.
All right, so on to.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So on to the first slide for Jennifer here under Parks and Recreation. There again are no line items that are going to be changed from the temporary budget. So what you see on that temporary appropriations legislation is what's going to go forward onto the permanent appropriations. We do have money in the budget for holding events at this time. Obviously, if we're still in COVID-19 and those events have to look a little different, we may adjust the budget along the way, but at the moment, we are planning on being able to have those events come summertime. Jennifer, did you want to speak to Rock the Park and the special events and summer camp for a moment?
Good evening, everybody. The biggest thing is that COVID is going to affect these events no matter what, just because we start so early in the summer. So what I'm working on now is what those costs look like, so that they're fit within the budgets that we have right now. Rock the Park, we can make some allowances for that. We might have to raise ticket costs, because we're not going to be able to have as many people there. COVID restrictions are really, really going to play an important part in Rock the Park. Day camp, right now the biggest factor is the busing. With the schools not allowing more than about 18 kids per bus, we're looking at what they're going to charge us, if they're going to even allow us to use their busing. So I've reached out to them. So a lot of this stuff is in the works, and I want to be able to do it, but it's going to be dependent on these COVID restrictions. And so it might come down to how much we want to actually subsidize or support these events moving forward. So.
Yeah. And normally the majority of those events and the summer camp are self-supporting. On the Rock the Park side, we do get a lot of donations that offset the costs, so it's not necessarily just from ticket sales. So in normal world, which is what we budgeted for, those things would take care of themselves. So that's a consideration for holding all those types of events in the camp, that this year that might not look the same, with the revenues outweighing the expenses. So then on to staffing. Staff was reduced from 3 to 2 in 2020. Their total budget was reduced 11%, which is just under $98,000. We do have the $40,000 budgeted under special events under the different line item under general government. If we want to take a moment and talk about the City Hall uplighting project, just to recap, we had $15,000 in our capital budget last year under service to do something with holiday or City Hall display in general. That money was not used or encumbered last year, as we went with a lower cost option to get us through 2020. So whatever we would do this year, we would just need to make sure that we plan for financially. Jen, do you want to give a little bit of information there?
So what I've been able to find out about this project is that gone from more of a holiday lighting to all year round lighting, such as landscape lighting. Right now, we're sitting at a cost that will force us to go out to bid between the supplies and what Gary's going to need in order to install it. We are looking in the neighborhood of about $55,000 to $60,000 for what has been proposed up to this point. But I am working with Chris and Gary and a couple of vendors to see where we can manipulate this a little bit to get it to where we want it to be able to come to you guys and say, okay, here's where we're at, you know, where do we want to go from here? The thing is that a lot of this stuff is going to be 5 to 6 months out. So if we want to make decisions based on that, we are going to have to make them quickly to get it in this year. But again, that's something that I'm just now coming into, so I'm not comfortable giving you, you know, an educated opinion on what exactly has happened in the past. So I'm going to reach out again with Chris and Gary to our vendors. We're going to get a meeting together and see where we're at and see what it is that everybody wants. So.
If I could just say a couple words. So the lighting, we worked with a company that was through Rock the House. There was a sample light that was brought out, and it is a higher level of what we're calling, if we want to call it landscape lighting. It's multicolor LED, computer controlled. It can be animated. There's a lot of different options with it so that it can serve a purpose of throughout the year, provide uplighting for the building in general, during different months or different holidays, provide different colored uplighting, and then of course would be at the same level that we're used to the last couple of years on our Christmas lighting. Now, with that being said, I'm happy to explore different options, but that was what was priced and kind of tested originally. There's from my understanding, the lumens and the brightness and the color options vary greatly and have a price tag associated with it. So based on what we're used to seeing over the last couple of years, this would be the same and we'd own it and be year round. So, you know, if we had, if we're okay with that number, then we can move, we'll work with that. If not, then we can give me a number and I'll figure out something with Jen and start getting some prices.
So that was my question. So we will own this and we'll be the one putting it up and.
Correct.
And maintaining it and so on and
Yeah.
so
I
forth.
think it's
There's no outside-
We can install it in-house and, you know, we can run it.
Permanent, it's.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
ours, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So I think at Christmas time, we don't need, to rent all the lights that
We did in the past.
that we have in the past. They would all be done. Some of the other decorations and the trees, if we continue to do that, would be the cost. But from a uplighting of the building and everything associated with our Christmas lighting would be handled by this.
Could we, now that she mentioned 55 to 60,000, does that include, I think she said there was 15,000 in the service budget already, right?
That was last year's.
No, there
No.
was 15,000 last year.
That we used?
Used.
No, it was
or
never used.
numbered, because we went with a small display last year that was just an operating expense. That $15,000 is no longer available.
So we went with the lowest
we
option last year, if I
would be
remember right.
new.
Yeah, okay.
So,
You spent 5
Sam,
last
to
year.
your point, our staff or service staff, someone would be trained to set these lights. So once they're installed, we don't have to have anyone else come out, we don't have to have anyone else check them. Once it's installed, our staff would know how to change those, whether it be for Halloween or Hanukkah or anything like that. We're able to make those changes through the computer.
Okay, okay, cool. Will we have any, will we at least review what we're gonna get before we go ahead and do this, or, you know, to spend this kind of money?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'd like to know what we're
Yeah,
getting if we could.
I can forward all of you, I think Derek might have forwarded to you guys in November, the lights that they were looking at. Both Mars Electric and Rock the House are coming in at the same cost for about the same type of lighting. And then Gary says the installation is the additional cost. But I can forward that to you again. And once I get with Chris and Gary this week to discuss in further, just make sure this is kind of where we want to go, then we can have a little bit more of a outline for you. Mars Electric can get us kind of what it's going to look like digitally and give you some pictures and things like that.
Yeah, and I know when I met with Gary and we met with the reps and looked at it, his idea was to make sure we had a light that he could mount above the ground along the building so it shot straight up, so you're not dealing with guys hitting the wires with hose or running, covering them in mulch, and that would save the life and prolong the life of the lights since they are an expensive light. So that was the plan, is to have something that could be mounted off the ground and shoot straight up the side of the building.
Okay. I thought we had a bid for $47,000 the last time we did this.
I recall the same number also. I know at the end, when we got the final numbers in, I remember being right around the $50,000 number.
50
So,
is what I see in an email from Derek.
Yeah.
October 27th of last year.
so,
Approximately 50,000.
yeah.
Yeah, I can send you the newest quote that I got from Mars 2 weeks ago that shows the $49,000 just for the supplies itself. Gary is estimating on what his installation costs would be as far as supplies and things.
So does
He's
that include
estimating that
installation
between-
then, Jen? The 55 to 60?
So if Gary holds to his 6,000, then we're at the 54, 55 mark. If Gary goes over, then we're, in that 55 to 60 realm.
Our guy.
Yeah, Gary Foote, yep.
That's what we're
Okay.
talking about.
Yes, our in-house
Our guy, yeah.
electrician.
Oh, thank
yeah.
you. Okay.
Yep.
And everybody understand that now? We good? Okay. What else?
Okay, any other questions on Parks and Rec?
There was a time when when the school system raised the busing prices that we thought about discontinuing that for the summer programs. If there was ever a
We
year
actu-
to do that,
We actually have considered that. Derek and I talked about it actually last year. This year, that is going to be paramount on the planning, that we may just phase it out entirely.
it's gotten more expensive and a bigger hassle, and once it's gone,
Yeah.
people will adjust.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think the inclination this year,
do.
and the conversations that we're gonna have is this really is an optimal time to have a year without busing, see how it goes. Again, probably the quantity and the efficiency of the busing is not gonna, whether the school's even gonna let us do it. So I think this year, whatever we plan will probably not include busing, and I'd like to have a camp this year. I mean, and probably gonna be planning two, kind of a semi-normal and then whatever a full COVID camp might look like. So, in my mind, we're not planning for any busing, so,
Okay,
okay?
we were close to fixing that before and we didn't, and, but I think
Yeah,
it's something that we should get away from.
yeah.
It's only gonna cost us more money.
No, I agree, and I think in the past, the decision was more based on, we were still very reasonably priced, but we had enough revenue coming in from camp to cover the busing, but again, I think I'd rather, again, concentrate on keeping the price at a minimum and being able to offer the camp, and if busing is something that has to go, then that has to go.
I agree.
Which, with anything that we're doing in the Parks and Recreation Department, we're running a Plan A and a Plan B for 2021. Obviously, Plan A is gonna be if COVID doesn't exist and we're able to open the world as normal. Plan B is gonna have all of these caveats as far as, what needs to be phased out. And I think that parents will understand that it's something that needs to be phased out. Because the other thing we're looking at with camp is we're not gonna have 300 and 400 kids, so, because we have building restrictions, we have capacity issues. So the first thing that would get cut is busing, but, to give it a fair thing, I feel that I need to at least evaluate it and see where it was at so that we can give it a fair, shot.
I think we should vote on that now.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to look at it, but I don't know that that's gonna fly in this room.
Right. It's a good time to.
Yeah, it's really a good time to make that break.
Okay.
Okay? All right, anything else under the camp? Okay, go ahead. What else?
Okay, so, on the senior center, again, we're keeping the budget amounts the same. The total budget there was reduced 25% from the original 2020 appropriations, or $44,000. Most of that is due to the personnel reductions. We are going to have a discussion on senior center staffing as that building, in general, the senior and the community center opens up. They will at least need a little bit of additional staffing besides Laura in order to be able to open that building up to everybody. And then we're also gonna have to talk, probably some discussions about senior van services, and where we see that going, both through the rest of the pandemic and in the future, because I know that demand will bounce back. So we just want to make sure we have a plan in place that we're able to provide whatever service level council is comfortable with that program. And that's something that we can talk about as we get into that multi-year planning that we're having those sessions that we're going to talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions on the senior center? It's pretty cut and dry over there.
Just to make a comment. So right now Laura is kind of doing whatever she needs to in Parks and Rec. She's doing a lot of transporting of seniors for doctor's appointments and stuff right now. And that's because we have no driver. We had a full-time driver, and so that person was laid off. As we move into 2021, when we look at, before the senior centers were the last possible places we thought we would have open. Now they could be the first, because almost every single person that's comes there is probably 75 and older, and they're all getting vaccinated. So that might be the safest place in the city to be come 2 months. So we'll have to talk about our senior van service and our doctor service, which I think is extremely important for the community. Whether we potentially make an offer to bring someone back part-time just to assist with some of that, because Laura's duties are going to pick back up with some of the events that she has going, of course, at senior center. It may not happen as soon as that, but again, as we go into the spring, we should probably start considering it as I think the senior centers will probably start opening back up as, the second round of the vaccines for these people start happening.
I agree with
So
you,
the
Ted. I
largest-
think we're going to.
If I could, I'm gonna go ahead and push us along because we have a hard stop here in about 13 minutes. And I wanna make sure we have a moment to talk about the fitness center temporary budget into permanent, as well as those couple things we have under miscellaneous.
Hey, Sarah, can I just say one quick thing about opening the senior center?
Go ahead.
It'll be real quick. We aren't able to open the senior center at this point, according to ODH, without offering testing when they enter the building. So that has to become a factor as well. So Laura and I are looking at that. So there's a lot of factors that'll go into opening the senior center.
Okay, thank you. So, over at the fitness center, so again, that's not true. There's one item that will go up at the fitness center, from temporary budget to permanent budget, and that is just because we have an employee that's participating in our tuition reimbursement program. So we need to make sure we have enough money in that line item to be able to cut those tuition reimbursement checks. So we'll be adding a few $1,000s there. Otherwise, everything will remain the same from that temporary budget. So revenues were down pretty significantly over at the fitness center last year. They were down 60%, and it's due to COVID. Those membership declines are due to the shutdown and what we've been able to offer up so far, but we are working on a recovery plan over there. And we're continuing to review the class offerings. One thing that we have started is discussions on that large capital investment that we have over at the fitness center with the pool packs and the roof, and we've pulled in engineering and service so that we can get a design together and get some really more specific numbers and timing on what we need to do over there. The last thing is, as we are able to open up things over at the fitness center and the outdoor water park, we may need to come back to council to ask for additional appropriations should we be able to provide more services. Like we have a note down there about the outdoor berg. If we're able to open that up, then we'll need to be able to buy everything that we need for that berg, but that would be a source of income. And we would do our best that anything that would open up, we have a revenue line item to go along with that over in that fund as we work on that recovery planning. So are there any questions about going forward with the fitness center? The budget has been significantly reduced just because we do expect to have a rebuilding year here in 2021.
Nope, I think we're good, Sarah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop my share. share here. Jen, any last comments about the fitness center? I apologize, I was trying to move it along.
You're okay, that's fine. I don't think so. I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but we are constantly reviewing our programs to be better at being fiscally responsible over there while still giving our membership what they need. So we're in the middle right now of evaluating how we proceed moving forward into February.
Thank you. Any
Thank you, Jen.
Maureen
for
has a
Maureen
question.
Jennifer?
Oh, Maureen has a question, I'm sorry.
I have a quick question for Jen. Jen, how many families take advantage of the busing? Is it, of the busing for the students to day camp, is it a significant number, or do a lot of parents draw?
Of the day camp,
Yeah.
The busing.
it's a significant number.
Take advantage of the busing?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say 93 to 95% of the participants at camp do take advantage of the busing. So it will be a significant loss for a lot of people, especially if we're not able to offer, aftercare and before care. So that's why I just want to be able to say we did it, we looked at it, and we're still going to cut it. So.
I think she should at least take a look at it, just to see.
Well, I told her, take a look at it, but what about, anybody receptive to charging for it then, if we decide to keep it?
I think you need two totally separate rates. You need a transportation
Right,
rate.
and a rate for, absolutely, I agree, Scott.
And the transportation,
Charge the parents at least.
Correct.
and the transportation
And-
rate needs to be flexible on what the school system does, because are they gonna charge us more when there's less,
Right.
need?
Mhm.
That thing went through the roof when they started using the union wages.
Yeah.
Well-
And we went from,
We,
we're
we-
over $40,000 in busing last I heard.
we had this discussion, we
We
went through
have-
this, we went through this,
we
sorry,
have-
Sorry, Jen, just one sec. We went through this whole analysis last time, and what we ended up doing is, we took a pretty significant increase in our weekly rate, when we talked about, whether to charge for busing or not, and I even said, let's just, if the schools wanna have busing, or offer busing, let them set up a table and sign up kids for busing. We have nothing to do with it, they collect the fee, they deal with it. But at the end of the day, the way the camp was going financially, we ended up going from, I think it was like $72 to 90-something dollars, and no one blinked an eye, and we offset that busing cost. So, that was analysis that went through, I think, the last time, and ultimately why we didn't kill busing then is because we took, $20 per week per kid increase. Am I right, Jen, or pretty close?
Yeah, that is true. So this year, what our plan was, and still continues to be, is to look at it on both sides and say, okay, so this is what they're gonna charge us, because we know that it's gonna be a significant charge this year away from what it has been in years past. And I don't think it's really gonna be something that we're gonna be able to recoup because of the lessened enrollment in camp. But what we can do and what we've talked about is implementing that fee. If you're choosing busing, this is what that fee is gonna be. We're only gonna be able to allow 50 kids that are getting bused. But those bus stops may not be at the end of your street anymore. They may be 3 streets down because we've only got 6 buses. So that's why I wanted to let the school tell me what would be available to us if we even decided to go this route. And I wanted to be able to present 2 plans to you guys.
And what their cost would be too,
Yeah, it's-
Jen, this year for the bus.
Yeah, it could be challenging to charge for busing, because think about it, I mean, you're gonna need to have a minimum to make it worthwhile. If I say, okay, 100 kids, and we divide it out, and we say this is gonna be the fee, and we only get 30 kids sign up for busing because there's a fee, the bus charge is gonna be the same. We have to,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
The other thing on it,
I think it's probably the best thought is to either incorporate busing and have the fee as a built-in part of the weekly rate, or just don't have busing. I think those are probably your best 2 options.
well, the other thing is parents' needs might be different, because a lot of people are really working from home, so they might not need the same things that they
Right.
did.
Plus this modified busing, like she said, if we might not be able to drop them off on their street, but we gotta drop them off 3 streets from their house, I'm not happy with that either. I feel responsible at that point that kid even gets home.
Right.
So I would rather do without the whole program and just do the camp without busing. I didn't like the sound of that at all. you know,
And I don't either as a parent. I don't,
Yeah,
because a
exactly.
lot of these parents leave their kids,
yeah,
go to work, and then just, they walk out their front door and get on the camp bus. So, let's see where we're at. I'll be meeting with our camp supervisor in February.
okay,
And I know that busing is the first thing to go. So I've built a plan on that, and we'll, kind of look at it and see where we're at. And then I'll send you, my thoughts and ideas, and let us go from there.
okay, sounds good,
We
Jen,
can
thank you.
continue this discussion for sure. It's not something that has to be decided in January. We'll have a couple plans ready to go.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you, Jen, thanks so much, we
Sarah, do you
appreciate
want a
it.
gavel?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jen.
Sarah, you
welcome.
need to move on, right, because we've got a couple more items to go.
We've just got a couple minutes left.
Okay.
I think we're down to maybe 3 minutes, and we got a couple things to go over real quick.
Excuse me, real quick, I just want to say, if we can break for the public hearing and have that, and you can come back if Sarah's wants to finish up and not be rushed. I do not anticipate the public hearing is going to take 30 minutes, but,
Correct.
so you can break for that at 6:30.
What do you think,
And
Sarah?
do that, and then reconvene the finance meeting if
Yeah,
you want.
but you want to do that, Sarah, instead of rushing through it?
Or, that's fine.
Well,
Just-
you could have drove in.
You got it.
Just sit tight, young lady.
I bet your dinner's all ready and you're smelling it in your house, right?
Coffee isn't comfortable enough?
Just down the hall.
Let me just click off that remote start.
Yeah, it
I'm
won't be
kidding, I'm
long.
kidding.
It'll be,
Yeah,
what,
that's fine. If you want to do whatever you need to do to halt finance, and we can come back after you guys are done with the public hearing.
All right, finance could now then take a recess, and we'll resume as soon as the public hearing's over. Okay?
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you in a minute.
Hi, Sarah.
Sarah, you are here.
We're
I
back.
thought you were home.
Okay, Sarah, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, well, now we will resume the finance committee meeting. So,
Okay.
You're on.
Did you need Jennifer to come back? We kind of were cutting off her portion of the meeting. I have a few things. Oh, there she is. Never mind, she's back. Okay. I have a few things that I'll get through, and then we can circle back to the discussion about camp and busing and uplighting. I think that we were trying to kind of rush through there. So if we can jump down to miscellaneous just for a moment,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Yep.
Okay. So the first thing, we have had a sewer bank account open that we have not been using for the last year and a half or so. When we switched over our sewer billing from our old system to our new system, we kept it open just to make sure we liked how everything was running. We're not talking about the sewer fund or the sewer improvement fund. We're just talking about the bank account. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and close out that bank account, move that money into our main bank account because we just have not used it. We like the way the system is running, and just combine those two accounts, save ourselves a few fees. The money will stay in the funds as far as all the reporting goes.
Okay, anybody have any objections to that?
None.
Joanne?
Good
Joanne.
plan.
Okay, great. We will get that taken care of. Thank you so much.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick with sewer billing is we are starting that implementation of the phase 2 that we've been talking about for a while. COVID kind of halted us for a little bit because we were busy with other things, but we are going to start that online billing portal that will be available to the residents for their sewer bills. At the end of the day, it should make things easier for the residents because they can have their bills emailed to them and go on there and do whatever they need to do online for their sewer billing. And it'll also save the city a little bit of money because those e-bills are going to be a cheaper cost than the postage to mail out those bills along with the printing services and everything that we have for those. So we're hoping to get that going. The implementation meeting, I think, is Thursday or Friday, and then we'll have a rollout plan provided to the residents when we know what the timing is going to look like. So that's just a little update there on sewer billing. The next item is multi-year planning sessions. So here in finance, what we have started is we've started having multi-year financial planning discussions with all of our departments. We're almost through the first round of meetings. We have another couple meetings tomorrow and Thursday. In those meetings, we are discussing personnel needs, operating expenses, and capital expenses. And my hope is that when we bring the 2022 budget to you guys in the fall, we will have a multi-year financial outlook on where we'd like to go with the city, along with what it will take to get us there. And so that staffing is a huge part of that, and Michael has been able to attend a few of those meetings with me, our new HR director, Michael Brown. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things that have come out of those meetings thus far. We have some bigger projects that are kind of coming out of the woodwork that we have not had on our radar just yet. One of them is citywide traffic boxes. And we're probably going to end up making a different group of department heads to discuss how we move forward with some of these bigger projects. Now that we know what the holdup was just no one was quite sure who should be in charge and start digging through the information and see what we need to do. So it's probably going to be engineering service, and then some other departments will float in and float out depending on what that project is. So like I said, the traffic boxes, that would certainly be engineering and service, and it's
the traffic
millions
box?
of dollars. Should we go down that road of what we need to do on that project? And obviously, as we have these discussions, it'll be in that multi-year financial planning document. We'll have some descriptions of what things are going to look like moving forward. Another
Sarah,
one.
what are the traffic boxes?
What's that?
What are the traffic boxes?
I'm not hearing him.
What are the traffic boxes?
What is a traffic
Oh,
box?
the traffic signal boxes that make
That's what I
the
thought, okay, for
That are
the
all
signal.
painted throughout the city?
computerized
When we have
red
to
light.
replace them?
So to have one at every signalized intersection, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Got it.
How many
Yeah.
cities?
Yeah, and it's been a little bit on Amy's radar, and it came out in one of her discussions, and she just, expressed her concerns about it, that we need to just kind of sort of start looking into it and start getting it onto our radar, because it is such a high dollar cost on what we need to do there. Another good thing that came out of one of the discussions that I had with the fire department is, you'll remember on that 5-year capital plan, we've sort of had this placeholder for Fire Station 1 improvements that was millions of dollars. And in the discussion over there at the fire department, where we truly need to start is probably doing a design study or an engineering study and seeing what we really need at that building, and then preparing a multi-year financial plan to see what we need to do over there. So things like that, they're really good discussions. And like I said, my goal would be that we would bring you forth a multi-year financial planning document with that 2022 budget in the fall. I think the last one I wanted to mention there was the playgrounds. The city maintains the playground equipment for all the playgrounds throughout the city. I think it was some sort of agreement we had with some of the developers along the way as the city grew. And at this point now, we have a whole lot to take care of, and we need to put a plan in place to be able to maintain that equipment and probably start replacing it. And that will be a large dollar amount as well. And probably a combination of service and parks and recreation would be involved in that one.
So you're talking about even the HOA playgrounds, right, that are in the homeowners associations?
Yeah,
equipment
they're
as well?
all on our listing.
Okay.
There's 3 in Ethan's, but the city takes care
Yeah,
of them.
there's 2 in the preserve, and then we got the big one over there on Glenwood, so, but that one we just replaced not too long ago.
Well, there was an issue at the one in the ledges, and the HOA took care of it.
Of the equipment?
Well, there was spray painting on the inside of the
Well,
slide that wasn't friendly. And it happened more than once, and they took care of it, so I was told that that's the association.
Well, they probably didn't have to, they could have called the city.
The
but-
city does them in
Yeah.
Ethan's.
Oh.
So I guess, does the city own that property, Dave, or? How does that work?
We'll have to look at them. I mean, that's part of this initiative because the city took a lot of these green space on these developments as these things came through. And at the time they were being developed, the city agreed to take them over and now we're 20 years down the road plus and, replacements have to be made. So, I think that's the overall look at this is what can be consolidated, what has to be replaced, what are we gonna continue with? We
I'd
have.
like to know who owns the property, because I don't think we cut I have been involved with the Betenson Green Group for almost 20 years, and I don't think we're cutting that grass.
Well, we cut the grass in Glenwood Preserve, I know that.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet the city does.
Who is we, the city of
The city.
Twinsburg?
We've never talked
Okay.
about
Yep.
proper or maintenance of that, because it's always been the city.
That's what I'm saying. I bet the city maintains them because the land was donated to the city at the time of development on most of these.
Okay, well, we can talk about that further, but go ahead.
Yes, so like I said, those planning sessions, I hope to have a document ready to go in the fall, but you're gonna hear me referring to those meetings a lot throughout this year as we hash out all those things with the department heads and what their needs are. Especially with the personnel piece of things, because as we reopen and as we add back to the capital and infrastructure programs, some of those departments that got hit a little harder, like service and engineering and building, we're gonna have discussions on what we need to do there and what those departments need to look like going forward. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we're starting all of that, and I'll be presenting findings along the way to council and mayor on what's on the horizon. Okay, so do we want to go back to the slides, or did you more just want to have more discussions regarding? I think we were on busing when we kind of cut off there.
Yeah, I mean, Maureen, do you have any more questions on the busing?
No, I just wanted to, I know you had mentioned don't look into it, and I think I'd like her to look into it.
No, I did say look into it. I said she can look into it if she'd like to, sure.
Yeah, that's what I think it's worth to look into, because, it's all a mess right now, to be honest. Like, even the schools, you don't fit so many kids on the bus. I mean, COVID is, we're still fighting COVID, busing
Yeah.
the least of the problems.
Right.
And I don't know that any decision on busing for this year would be a permanent decision that we would have for all years. You know what I mean? This year is obviously going to be a little bit different because we are most likely going to be in some sort of COVID regulation world when camp starts. So I can't imagine that busing would be the same, how many kids you can fit and all that kind of stuff this year versus next year. Things might look okay, and we were able to cover the cost of that busing with the camp fee back in 2019. So whatever decision we make this year, don't feel like it's forever, I guess, would be the message.
I mean, either way, like Joanne's point, she made a good point saying that a lot of parents are working from home, so busing may not even be as big of an issue with the bus lot. I just, anything is fine, like I said, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
We have canceled.
I'm not interested in subsidizing busing at this stage of the game. If
Okay.
it pays for itself, I support it. If it doesn't, I don't. I mean, that's my
Right.
position.
Okay. Anybody
Yeah,
else have an opinion on that?
I would agree
The
with
purpose,
that.
the purpose with
You're with Scott.
our is going to be that whatever camp we hold, it is going to do our best to make it pay for itself. And and we're not gonna bring busing just to support it. That's not the goal.
You never
Um,
have.
No.
Yeah,
No, no.
okay.
But we've lost money with busing.
Bill?
I said, but we've lost money because of busing a few years there.
Yeah.
So
Just for 1 year, right?
no,
Just for 1 year.
2.
Was
It was 2.
Greg, any thoughts?
No, I would agree with Mr. Barr. If it pays for itself, if we can come up with a way to make it pay for itself, that's fine. If not, then I would agree.
Joanne?
That's what I feel too.
Okay.
And maybe there's a way to do a survey and to find out.
But you still wanna have her research it?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of a given. I mean, we live in with that. I'm just saying, as far as, we wouldn't subsidize, we don't have money to subsidize.
Jen, if you can, just let us know what your findings are when you look into it.
You got it. Okay, I'll
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you want to go
You
back to the
bet.
Christmas lighting?
Yeah, do you
Jen-
guys have any more questions?
No, I just think that I would like to see, before we make a final decision personally, what we're looking at, what we're gonna get for, $55,000 to $60,000. And then, I mean, I know that was always our plan to go ahead and redo our Christmas lighting and get something permanent and purchase it, so we didn't have to rent it every year. So if you can give us some kind of an idea of what we're looking at, I think then we can make a better decision and let you know, a definitive answer.
As soon as I get those cut sheets, which will show us exactly what these lights will do,
Okay?
I forward those to you guys. In the meantime, I can forward you the specs now, and the cost from our electric at least, because they've given us really a good quote on that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good,
But
if you
I
could
can-
send that to everybody. Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, Jen, when you send that along, if you can also get some information about the projected longevity and the useful life of those lights, I think that will be very helpful in understanding, if it's $50,000 over 5 years versus 10 versus 20,
Well,
that would be helpful as well.
we were spending $20,000 to rent for one, so I think.
I understand
we're-
that, I understand that, but my
So-
point is, if it's gonna be 2 years, right, then I should spend the 20 every year, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And just making sure everybody knows this is a different type of lighting than what we've done like around the holidays, luminosity and things like that. This would, so
Thank goodness.
Mhm.
get all of that longevity and stuff for
I
you,
did
sure.
that.
Thank you.
Thank God.
You're welcome.
I'm glad it's different. Okay, anybody else on the Christmas lighting?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Gary. He's been really good about keeping me informed on that uplighting project. And he's been there at all the planning sessions and everything. And I think, as Jen steps in here, and keeps leading the charge on it, I think we'll have some good options going forward. We would probably just need to make sure before I bring the permanent appropriations in front of you in February, that we kind of have an idea on where we want to go monetarily with it.
Okay. Okay. All right, very good. Jen, I would just
Thank
like
you.
to say that thank you for picking up the ball that Derek left and running with it. I'm sure we all appreciate, your efforts right now and what you're doing and moving forward with everything to continue to make all of our programs operate for this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sarah, anything else?
I got through my stuff first
What'd she say?
She got through her stuff first.
before we got back into the fun stuff discussions.
Okay. All right, well, then our next meeting will be February 23rd at 6 o'clock, or is that good, Sarah?
Yes, it will be at 6 o'clock. Next month, we will have Amy and Larry and Keith to go over the budgets for engineering, infrastructure, building, planning, economic development.
Okay. And an hour will be enough? 1 hour will be enough?
I think so. I think 1 hour will be all right for those folks. The infrastructure program maybe will take a little bit of time, but I think building and planning and economic development will be pretty straightforward.
Well, within the month, if you need any more time, let us know, and we'll see what we can do to make it work.
Okay,
Okay?
I will.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much, then. We will
Thank you.
adjourn.